Global politics and international relations is everywhere in our daily lives, from the food we buy at the grocery store to the cars we drive and the pop culture we consume. Hey everyone, I'm Noah Zerby. I'm a professor of international relations at Humboldt State University, and today I'm counting down my top 10 television shows that explain or illustrate concepts in international relations. In this list, I'm looking to television shows that regularly demonstrate concepts, theories, and issues in global politics in a particularly entertaining way. I'm looking for entertaining shows, but the entertainment value is secondary to their ability to present these concepts and theories clearly. I'll also start with the caveat that getting down to 10 was surprisingly hard. There are some really good TV shows that can be used to explore these concepts and theories in international relations, but I tried to focus on shows that do so across the entire series rather than in a single episode or two. My list is also pretty US-centric. Nearly all the shows I mention were produced in the States for American viewers. I'd love to hear recommendations you have about shows, particularly from outside the United States, that you think illustrate concepts and theories in international relations. But that said, let's get started. I start with The West Wing, a political drama starring Martin Sheen as President Jed Bartlet, a Democratic congressman who's unexpectedly thrust into the presidency. Sheen's portrayal of President Bartlet evokes other Democratic presidents like John Kennedy, Jimmy Carter, and Bill Clinton. The drama frequently focuses on the political struggles within the White House or between the executive and legislative branches. While many of the episodes are more domestic in their focus, there are some excellent episodes that deal with issues in global politics, including the US invasion of Afghanistan, terrorism, the Rwandan genocide, the Valerie Plame affair, debates over free trade, the HIV/AIDS crisis, brinksmanship with China over Taiwan, among many, many others. The show was also incredibly optimistic and was accused of being an attempt of a revisionist history, essentially a retelling of the Clinton administration. Its focus on domestic politics prevents it from rising higher on my list, but that's why it's my number 10. At number 9, I have the television show MASH, a series based on a feature film based on a novel by Richard Hooker. The television show was a dark comedy series following the exploits of a group of doctors working at a mobile army surgical hospital, or a MASH unit. Filmed primarily in the 1970s, the show was ostensibly set during the Korean War, but was often written as commentary on the Vietnam War. In doing so, it offered a critical take on the Cold War and American foreign policy. That's why it's my number 9. The AM series Walking Dead comes in as my number 8. The Walking Dead is a post-apocalyptic horror series based on the Robert Kirkman comic series of the same name. The show follows a ragtag group of survivors of the zombie apocalypse as they struggle to survive and reestablish civilization after a zombie plague wipes out most of humanity. The show deals with themes of human nature, of the tensions of conflict and cooperation, survival and security. While the novel World War Z perhaps does a better job than the series Walking Dead, this series nevertheless provides some excellent discussion points for understanding global politics, and that's why it's my number 8. At number 7, I have Counterpart, a science fiction thriller series starring J.K. Simmons as Howard Silk, a low-level United Nations bureaucrat who quickly becomes entangled in a conspiracy that hides a gateway to a parallel world. The series was filmed in English and German across 2 seasons and has obvious parallels to the Cold War, while simultaneously raising extensive social commentary on a number of contemporary global issues. At number 6, I have The Americans. The Americans is a period spy thriller set in the 1980s and featuring Kerry Russell and Matthew Rhys as Elizabeth and Philip Jennings, 2 deep-cover Soviet intelligence operatives posing as an American couple living in Washington, D.C. The series ran over 6 seasons, from 2013 to 2018, but was set to span the 6-year historical period between Ronald Reagan's inauguration and the conclusion of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in 1987. The series does an absolutely masterful job at capturing the Cold War tensions and espionage, as well as a host of historical events during the period, including the Soviet war in Afghanistan and US military operations in Nicaragua. But it also speaks to the current world of espionage, including the arrest of 10 Russian sleeper agents who were part of the Illegals program and were arrested as part of the FBI's Operation Ghost Stories in 2010. And that's why The Americans is my choice for number 6. My choice for number 5 is Occupied, a Norwegian political thriller set in the near future. The show is premised on a series of events, including the US withdrawal from NATO, which triggers an energy crisis in Europe and ultimately leads to the European Union standing aside as Russia engages in a soft occupation of Norway. The show is an absolutely top-notch political thriller and is reminiscent of the BBC series A Very British Coup, which ran over 3 episodes in the late 1980s. Occupied touches on themes of diplomacy, occupation and governance, and the politics of energy and oil. It also provides an interesting thought experiment to think about the future of transatlantic relations in a period under stress, and that's why it's my choice for number 5. At number 4 is The Man in the High Castle, a dystopian alternative history produced by Amazon and based on the 1962 Philip K. Dick novel. The premise of the show is that Germany and Japan won World War II and divided the United States in half, with the eastern portion of the United States forming into the Greater Nazi Reich and the western portion of the United States into the Japanese Pacific states, with a small neutral zone in the Rockies. The show examines themes of patriotism and nationality, boundaries, war and resistance, and it does so in a really thoughtful and engaging manner. My choice for number 3 is Game of Thrones, a well-known fantasy series produced by HBO and based on a series of novels written by George R.R. Martin. While I'll concede that the final season of the Game of Thrones was a bit of a disappointment, the series leading up to that point was outstanding. The series follows the struggle of several major noble households as they compete for control over the fantasy realm of Westeros. The show highlights themes of diplomacy and espionage, war and peace, and contains numerous examples of concepts from realism, liberalism, constructivism, and feminist IR theory. That's why there's several books that have actually been written on international relations of the Game of Thrones, and that's why it's my choice for number 3. At number 2, I have Star Trek. Okay, so I cheated a bit, and I put all the various Star Trek series into a single category. But it's hard to go wrong with Star Trek. The original series contains numerous episodes which draw on the Cold War context to illustrate concepts like balance of power, the nature of war, arms races, deterrence, and mutually assured destruction. And true to its post-Cold War context, The Next Generation brings concepts like human rights, genocide, the rules of war, and the responsibility to protect. Indeed, there's enough Star Trek that you could probably find an example of just about any IR concepts somewhere in the show. And I also appreciate that while many of the other shows that I explore in this series are broadly rooted in a pessimistic understanding or framing of human nature and of the global system, Star Trek emphasizes a much more positive vision of the possibilities of cooperation to achieve shared objectives and to attain a better system. That's why it's my choice for number 2. Before sharing my number 1, I want to offer a few excellent series that didn't quite make my top 10. These are all outstanding shows, and they're worthy of watching in their own right, but they just didn't quite make my top 10 list. Firefly is a Joss Whedon space western drama and a real cult classic. The short-run series follows the struggles of the crew of the spaceship Serenity as they eke out a living on the edges of a post-Civil War solar system. In this vision of the future, China and the United States have fused into a central government, leaving a system which, as Joss Whedon described it, in which nothing will change, technology will advance, but will have the same political, moral, and ethical problems as we have today. Band of Brothers is a 10-part HBO series that follows the exploits of the Easy Company 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division of the U.S. Army from their early days of training through D-Day and on to the end of World War II. The series intersperses short interview clips with surviving members of the regiment, their letters and personal stories, telling the story of World War II in an incredibly personal manner and letting us see people at their best and their worst. Chernobyl is another HBO miniseries. This one examines the meltdown of the Soviet nuclear reactor at Chernobyl in 1986. The series does an excellent job humanizing the main actors, illustrating the heroic sacrifices many of them made, while simultaneously also examining the political failures of the Soviet political system in its final days. In many ways, the story of Chernobyl parallels the meltdown of the Soviet government 3 years later. It also speaks to events that helped to catalyze the broader global environmental movement, and quite simply, it's incredibly well done. Battlestar Galactica is a 2004 reboot of the 1970s television series of the same name. The science fiction series is premised on the idea that humanity is nearly wiped out by a robotic attack. The remaining humans are forced to flee the rampaging robots as essentially stellar refugees. The show is rife with allegory for the global war on terror and addressed themes like the torture of prisoners, the balance between security and civil liberties, and civilian control over the military. When I started developing this list, I thought it would be hard to arrive at a choice for number one, but I was surprised when number one, for me at least, became an obvious choice. And the show that is my number one pick for the best television series dealing with themes of international relations is The Expanse. The Expanse is a science fiction series produced for Amazon. It's set hundreds of years in the future when humanity has colonized Mars and established mining outposts further afield. The show follows the crew of one ship, the Rossi, as they uncover conspiracies and attempt to prevent the outbreak of war between Earth and Mars. At its heart, The Expanse is a political thriller that explores themes of diplomacy, governance, the human condition, and even a pandemic. It presents a parable for the struggle between great powers, the impact that such struggles have on small states, the nature of terrorism and resistance, balance of power theory, deterrence, offensive and defensive realism, and a host of other concepts. It really is science fiction at its best, and it's a perfect accompaniment to understanding a number of themes and theories in international relations. And quite simply, it's a fantastic show. And that's why it's my choice for the best series on understanding international relations. So what do you think? Did I get your favorite? Did I miss an obvious or excellent choice? Let me know your shows on thoughts I should catch and possibly add to my list in the comments section below. And if you like what you saw here, be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.